Success is not moved by your wishes. It does not yield because you are tired of struggling. It does not soften because you think you have waited long enough. Success is a stern examiner, and it has only one real question for every man who approaches it. What are you willing to give up? Not what you hope for, not what you dream about at night, but what you are prepared to lay on the altar and never take back. Until you answer that question with your life, success will remain polite, distant, and uninterested in your complaints. You say you want more. More money, more influence, more mastery, more peace. Very well. Success hears you and immediately measures the seriousness of your desire by the sacrifices you are willing to make. It does not measure by your words. Words are cheap. It does not measure by your moods. Moods change as quickly as the weather. It measures by what you are prepared to lose in order to gain what you say you want. Every great advancement in a man's life has a tombstone beside it, marking something he buried so that something greater could live. The tragedy is that most men want to carry their old life into a new level and call it balance. Life does not work that way. You may not like this, but you already know it is true. Look back at any lasting improvement you have made. If there was real change, there was something you abandoned for good. Perhaps you gave up the comfort of blaming others. Perhaps you gave up certain companions whose talk dragged you down. Perhaps you gave up evenings of idle amusement to study when your eyes were heavy. Perhaps you gave up the lazy pleasure of speaking whatever you felt in favor of discipline over your tongue. You cannot recall a serious victory that did not require letting go of some cheap indulgence that once ruled you. The law is simple. You cannot add without subtracting. You cannot take hold of a new standard without releasing what contradicts it. Most men, however, try to live by a softer law. They want success to fit comfortably inside the life they already have. They say, I will improve, but I will not be inconvenienced. I will advance, but I will not offend my habits. I will rise, but I refuse to part ways with anything I enjoy. This is the mind of a child sitting at a table full of sweets saying, I want to grow strong, but I will eat only sugar. Nature laughs at such foolishness. Muscles are not built with softness. They are built with resistance. Character is not built with indulgence. It is built with denial. Success is not built with clinging. It is built with choosing. You must stop imagining success as a gift that visits you while you remain the same man. Success is not a visitor. It is a new country. To live there, you must become a different kind of citizen. The habits, beliefs, and companions that fit your old level will not all fit there. Some will be too small, some too heavy, some openly hostile to the climate of achievement. When you cling to them, you are like a man trying to enter a narrow gate while dragging a trunk of useless possessions behind him. You tug and strain and wonder why the gate will not widen. It will not, because the gate is not the problem. The problem is your refusal to put down what you do not need. Ask yourself directly, what am I presently holding that keeps me where I am? Do not answer with poetry, answer with facts. Perhaps you cling to the habit of going to bed late and rising dull. Perhaps you cling to the pleasure of small talk that kills hours but builds nothing. Perhaps you cling to the intoxication of complaining, finding a strange comfort in telling anyone who will listen how unfair your life has been. Perhaps you cling to the approval of those who are comfortable with your mediocrity and quietly threatened by your ambition. Perhaps you cling to the belief that you can somehow escape paying the price others have paid by being clever, charming, or patient. Success hears all this clinging and says, you are not ready. Not because you are not intelligent enough, not because you lack potential, but because you still believe you can keep everything and gain everything, that you can be born a second time without dying to anything. That belief keeps more men poor in money, in character, in influence, than any lack of opportunity. You may protest. Must I abandon everything I enjoy? Must I throw away all comfort, all rest, all comradeship? No. The law is not that you must give up everything. The law is that you must give up whatever stands between you and the man you are becoming. Some pleasures are harmless. Others are poison. The difference lies in their effect on your purpose. A walk after a long day may refresh you for tomorrow's work. Hours of idle gossip drain the very energy that work requires. Sharing a simple meal with a trusted friend may strengthen your spirit. Spending every evening with men who mock ambition rots it. Success never asks you to give up what renews your strength. It asks you to give up what quietly steals it. Look closely at your days. They are the bricks from which your future is built. Each hour carries a message about what you value more. Immediate ease or ultimate growth. When you choose one, you sacrifice the other. There is no way around this. If you spend 3 hours each evening in senseless distraction, you do not simply relax. You pay those 3 hours as a price. You trade them for stagnation. If instead you dedicate even one of those hours to study, planning, building a skill, or strengthening your body, you are paying those minutes as a price for advancement. In both cases, you give something up. In one, you give up discipline. In the other, you give up laziness. The question is not whether you will sacrifice. The question is what you will sacrifice. Successful men do not escape sacrifice. They simply choose higher sacrifices for higher rewards. The unsuccessful man sacrifices his future to protect his comfort. The successful man sacrifices his comfort to protect his future. One gives up his potential to keep his pleasures. The other gives up his cheap pleasures to claim his potential. Both pay. One pays in regret, the other pays in effort. You cannot serve two masters. This is as true in your mind as it is in your daily life. You cannot serve your desire for greatness and, at the same time, your desire to be liked by everyone. You cannot serve your desire for wealth and, at the same time, your desire to appear modestly harmless to those who despise ambition. You cannot serve your desire for mastery and, at the same time, your desire to avoid every discomfort. Eventually, one master will demand you abandon the other. Success will stand before you and ask, which will it be? Many men believe they have answered this question because they have strong emotions about success. They feel excited when they hear of great achievement. They speak boldly about what they intend to do. They spend hours imagining what their life will look like once they break through. Then, when success quietly presents the price, early mornings, study when others sleep, rejecting trivial invitations, walking alone for a season, they recoil and call it too extreme. They do not understand that success itself is speaking in that moment. Success rarely shouts. It does not stand at your door with trumpets. It whispers in moments of decision. It says, if you say yes to this distraction, you say no to me. If you say yes to this indulgence, you say no to me. If you say yes to staying the same, you say no to becoming more. You may not hear those words, but you live their meaning. To begin answering success honestly, you must first strip yourself of illusions about time. Many men excuse their lack of progress by saying, I have no time. Look at their days and you will see that they mean, I have no time that I am willing to take away from what I enjoy. The hours are there, but they are already claimed by habits that produce nothing. When success asks, will you give me this hour? They respond, No, I need it for rest, for amusement, for escape. Then they kneel at night and pray for success, having just refused to pay the smallest part of its price. Face this with honesty. You have the same 24 hours as every man who has ever built anything that mattered. The difference is not in how many hours you receive, but in how many you are willing to buy back from trivial use and invest in your purpose. That buying back is a form of giving up. You give up the right to drift. You give up the pleasure of feeling innocent and helpless. You give up the excuse that you are too busy once you see how much of your busyness is nothing more than avoidance. There is another price. You must be willing to give up certain versions of yourself. It is not only habits and companions that hold you back, it is also your cherished identity as the man who never offends anyone, the man who is always available, the man who is perpetually agreeable, the man who is never serious enough to be criticized. Success demands that you outgrow these costumes. It demands that you become the man who can say no without shaking, the man who can endure misunderstanding without collapsing, the man who can stand alone for a time while his results are still invisible. This is harder than giving up a pastime. To surrender an identity feels like death. You have worn it for years. People know you by it. Yet that is precisely why it must go. If your present identity could carry the weight of success, you would already be living at a higher level. The fact that you are not proves that something in who you believe you are is too small for where you say you want to go. You must be willing to give up being that smaller man. In plain words, success will ask you to give up the luxury of living by your feelings. Many lives are wasted because a man has quietly believed, I must feel like it before I do it. This belief is comfortable because it allows him to delay action until he is moved by some mysterious surge of inspiration. Of course, that surge seldom comes, and when it does, it fades quickly. A man who ties his actions to his feelings is a slave to his moods. Success demands that you reverse this order. You must give up the habit of obeying your feelings and instead train your feelings to obey your decisions. When you decide that a thing must be done, you do it whether your mood is friendly or hostile. At first, your feelings will protest. They will say, this is harsh. This is unnatural. They are lying. It is not unnatural. It is adulthood. Discipline is simply the practice of choosing your action first and letting your feelings catch up later. The price is the surrender of childish spontaneity. The reward is the power to move your life in a straight line instead of wandering in circles. All of this may sound severe, but severity is not cruelty when it is applied in service of something higher. Think of a craftsman carving a statue from a block of stone. Each strike of the hammer removes something that does not belong. From the stone's perspective, every blow is a loss. But from the artist's perspective, every blow is a step toward the form he sees in his mind. When success asks you, what are you willing to give up? It is placing the hammer in your hand and pointing to the excess stone in your life. You can clutch the rough block forever and insist that nothing be taken, or you can endure the chipping away and see, over time, the shape of a stronger man emerge. You may still hesitate. You may say, I fear that if I give up too much, my life will become dry and joyless. That fear comes from confusing comfort with joy. A man can be comfortable and utterly miserable. He can be surrounded by easy pleasures and yet feel empty, restless, and ashamed of his own stagnation. Another man can live with strict discipline, relinquishing many comforts, and yet feel alive, purposeful, and deeply satisfied. The difference is not in how much they have given up, but in what they gave it up for. When you surrender useless comforts for the sake of a meaningful aim, You gain a joy that comfort alone has never given you and never will. Success will always ask its question. It is putting that question before you now. It will appear in the next decision you make about how to use your time, the next invitation you accept or decline, the next habit you either excuse or confront. What are you willing to give up? This is not a poetic question. It is the narrow doorway into the life you say you want. Your answer will not be heard in the fine speeches you make to yourself, but in the sacrifices you begin making today, quietly, steadily, without applause. And as you take those first sacrifices seriously, something begins to shift. The struggle stops being simply about loss and begins to be about exchange. You start to see with increasing clarity that every time you let go of something small, you create room for something larger. Every time you release a weakness, you make space for a strength. Every time you deny a petty craving, you feed a deeper hunger. Bit by bit, you begin to understand that success is not merely asking you to give up. It is inviting you to trade up. There comes a moment in every serious man's life when he stops asking, "What can I get?" and starts asking, "What must I release?" That moment separates dreamers from doers, talkers from builders. Up to now, you may have measured your commitment by how much you could pile on. More books, more ideas, more plans, more promises. But success is not impressed by how much you add on top of an undisciplined life. It wants to see what you are willing to cut away. It looks at your hands and asks, are you gripping too tightly to what keeps you small? Only empty hands can take hold of something new without dropping it. Start with the easiest place to see the truth. Your use of time. Time is the clearest ledger of sacrifice because it is impossible to fake. A man may speak of his ambitions for hours, but when you examine how he spends his days, you see what he truly worships. If he says he wants to build a great work but spends his evenings in idle entertainment, scattered conversation, and aimless wandering, it is not his faith that has betrayed him. It is his unwillingness to give up his comforts. Success is standing beside him, watching, and saying, "You have chosen. You have traded me for distraction. You must look at your hours as a merchant looks at his coins. Each one can be spent only once. When it is gone, it does not return. Ask yourself directly, how much of my day is spent on what moves my life forward, and how much is spent dissolving my energy? This is not a question meant to condemn you. It is a question meant to awaken you. You may discover that most of your time is not deliberately chosen at all. It is claimed by habit, by others' expectations, by the path of least resistance. You have drifted rather than decided. Success will not drift toward you. It must be steered toward. That steering requires that you reclaim portions of your day from aimlessness and assign them to your purpose. This means quite plainly that you will have to give up some of the ways you currently rest and escape. It does not mean you must work every waking moment. It means your rest must be chosen, not stolen. Purposeful rest strengthens a man. Lethargic escape weakens him. You must have the courage to take back time from the latter and invest it in the former. Consider how much strength is wasted in the struggle to avoid discomfort. You have perhaps spent whole weeks plotting how to do important things without feeling any tension, as if growth could be made painless by clever arrangement. You hesitate at the start, postponing action until the moment feels right. You argue with yourself, bargaining for more ease. You search for inspiration instead of beginning. All of that inner wrestling consumes energy and produces nothing. Success would rather see you give up that constant negotiation and accept the cost of discomfort outright. Once you accept it, you stop fighting the very sensations that accompany progress. You walk into the cold water instead of standing at the edge, debating. You will have to give up the idea that you can change your life while holding on to every feeling you prefer. There will be days when your body wants rest and your mind wants indulgence, and yet your purpose requires that you work. There will be nights when your heart longs for amusement, and yet your future demands study. To choose the future over the present is a sacrifice, but examine the alternative. The man who always obeys his feelings becomes their servant. He grows weaker, not stronger, because his capacity to endure anything unpleasant shrinks year by year. The man who sometimes chooses duty over comfort, on the other hand, finds that his ability to bear discomfort grows. What once seemed impossible becomes tolerable. What once seemed intolerable becomes routine. Success is attracted to such a man because he can be trusted to stand when conditions are not perfect. Another price success asks is the surrender of your favorite excuses. Excuses are soft pillows. You lay your head on them whenever reality seems too sharp. I started late. I come from the wrong place. I do not have the right connections. Others have advantages I lack. These statements may contain fragments of truth, but when you use them to justify inaction, they become shackles. They allow you to look at your unfinished life and sigh, "It is not my fault," instead of saying, "It is still my responsibility." Success has no interest in a man who clings to his excuses more fiercely than to his opportunities. You must give up the comfort of believing that your situation is uniquely hopeless. That belief feels strangely satisfying because it relieves you from the duty to change. If no one else has ever faced what you face, then you can sit down and declare yourself an exception to the laws that govern progress. But look carefully and you will see that your situation, however painful, is not unique. Men have risen from ignorance, from poverty, from shame, from betrayal, from defeat, far greater than yours. What separated them from those who perished was not luck. It was the willingness to stop defending their limitations and start surrendering them. They paid in humility what others refused to pay. You will also be asked to give up a particular habit of speech, the habit of judging and criticizing men who are ahead of you. It is easy to point at those who have achieved more and say, they are greedy, dishonest, heartless. Perhaps some are. But when you constantly speak this way, you are not judging them, you are protecting yourself. You are soothing your pride by telling yourself that you are morally superior while remaining materially and mentally inferior. You are giving yourself permission to remain where you are. Success hears this and says he would rather feel righteous than be responsible. He is not ready. This does not mean you must admire everything every successful man does. It means you must give up the reflex of tearing down what proves that more is possible. Instead of saying, he must have cheated, ask, what did he endure? What did he learn? What did he give up to step where he stands? This question turns envy into education. It shifts your mind from resentment to inquiry. That shift is itself a sacrifice. You are surrendering the pleasure of bitterness for the power of knowledge. Another sacrifice is more painful than all the rest. You must be willing to give up your attachment to your past self. Many men cling to their history like a badge of honor. They tell the story of their failures again and again until it becomes a script they cannot escape. I have always been this way. I have always had this temper. I have always been unlucky with money. These phrases may feel honest, but they do not describe a fixed nature. They describe repeated choices. As long as you wear them as identity, success cannot trust you with change. To move forward, You must be willing to let the old story die. You must stop introducing yourself to yourself as the man who failed. You must give up the satisfaction of saying, "See how much I have suffered," and replace it with, "See how much I am responsible for building now." This does not erase your past. It reinterprets it. Instead of using it as proof that you are doomed, you use it as preparation that you will not waste. But you cannot do this while still stroking your wounds and demanding sympathy from yourself or from others. There is a hidden pleasure in self-pity. It allows you to play both victim and hero in your own mind. No one knows how hard I have had it. I am noble just for enduring. That posture may comfort you on cold nights, but it will never build anything. Success asks that you give up the luxury of feeling sorry for yourself, not because your pain was small, but because your future is large. You cannot carry both. The hand that grasps tightly at old injuries cannot reach for new responsibilities. Closely related to this is another sacrifice. You must give up the need to be understood by everyone. Growth will distance you from some people. Your new discipline will expose their laziness. Your seriousness will make their jokes feel shallow. Your refusal to waste time as before will disturb those who valued you as a companion in idleness. They will accuse you of arrogance, of coldness, of abandoning them. If you cannot endure this, you will stay where they are so you can keep their approval. Success requires that you value alignment with your purpose more than the comfort of being universally liked. This does not give you permission to be cruel. It gives you permission to be selective. You must give up the belief that saying no makes you selfish. Refusing what diminishes you is not selfishness. It is stewardship. You owe it to your future to close the doors that lead back to your worst habits. Some of those doors have friends' names written on them. You will have to decide which matters more, your destiny or your invitations. You will also be required to surrender your attachment to immediate results. This is one of the most difficult sacrifices for a modern mind. Men have been trained to expect quick satisfaction. They try a new habit for a few days and then stare at their surroundings, demanding proof that it works. When no miracle occurs, they abandon it and look for another method. They live like children digging up a seed each morning to see if it has sprouted. Then they declare, "This garden thing is a lie." Success will not bow to that impatience. It will ask you to give up the craving for instant transformation and replace it with respect for gradual progress. That means you must accept seasons of apparent stagnation as part of the process. You will work, study, think, and act for a time while the outward picture changes little. This is when most men quit. They tell themselves, "I am sacrificing, and nothing is happening." Something is happening. Your character is being shaped to carry what you seek. But you have to endure the invisible part of the journey. You must give up the belief that only what can be seen immediately is real. Another thing success will ask you to give up is the habit of scattering your attention across many half-hearted efforts. A man who divides his energy between 10 different pursuits, never committing fully to any of them, looks busy and feels important. He can always say, "I am working on many things." But when the year ends, he has little to show but unfinished projects and vague fatigue. Success is not interested in how many directions you can face at once. It is interested in how deeply you can dig in one direction until you strike something solid. This requires that you give up some good options in order to pursue one great one. It might mean choosing a single skill to develop ruthlessly instead of dabbling in several. It might mean focusing on one enterprise instead of chasing every opportunity others mention. It might mean accepting that For a season, you'll be known for doing one thing exceptionally well rather than many things tolerably. That is a sacrifice of variety for the sake of mastery. Many are unwilling to make it. They prefer the pleasant illusion of unlimited potential over the demanding reality of actual achievement. You must also give up the protection of vagueness. As long as your goals are hazy, you can never truly fail. You can always say, "I am working on something," without specifying what. This protects your pride. If you never name clearly what you seek, how much, by when, in what form, you never have to face the discomfort of falling short. You can float in a cloud of effort without evaluation. Success will not enter that cloud. It demands clarity. It asks, what exactly do you want? What will you build? What will you produce? What mark will you leave? Answering clearly means sacrificing the comfort of hiding. When you say, "By this date, I intend to reach this measurable state," you expose yourself. You make failure possible, but you also make success possible. Before, you could never know if you had truly advanced. Now you can. Progress requires that risk. You must give up the safety of never being judged, even by yourself. You must be willing to see where you stand in relation to your aims. That knowledge may sting, but it will guide you more faithfully than any daydream. There is one more sacrifice few men consider: the surrender of pride in being always right. Pride clings to old opinions and methods long after they have proved useless, because to change would feel like admitting defeat. A proud man would rather fail on his own terms than succeed by learning from someone else. He waves away advice, mocks new ideas, and hides from evidence that contradicts him. In the end, he builds a monument not to achievement, but to his own stubbornness. Success has no patience with such pride. It will require that you give up the need to appear wise and embrace the willingness to become wiser. That often means saying, "I was wrong. I did not see this clearly. Your idea is better than mine," or "I must start again." These phrases burn the tongue of a proud man, but they are the language of growth. The moment you would rather learn than be seen as knowing, you open the door to accelerated progress. You stop guarding your ego and start guarding your improvement. If all this sounds demanding, it is because success respects itself. It does not allow itself to be possessed cheaply. It knows the weight it carries. Wealth, influence, mastery, the power to shape events rather than always being shaped by them. Such power in the hands of a man who has sacrificed nothing becomes his destruction. Without the discipline forged by giving things up, he will be unable to handle responsibility. He will be swayed by every temptation, intoxicated by praise, weakened by ease. So success insists on payment beforehand. It says, "Show me with your sacrifices that you are building the strength required to survive what you seek." When you deny yourself distractions, you build focus. When you walk away from people who weaken you, you build independence. When you get up early to work while others sleep, you build endurance. When you accept slow progress without quitting, you build patience. Each sacrifice becomes a stone in the foundation. By the time visible success arrives, you are no longer the same man who first wanted it. You are one who can bear it. Look again at your life through this lens. Do not ask, "Why has success not come?" Ask, "What price have I refused to pay?" You may feel resistance rise in you as you examine this. That resistance is the voice of everything in you that is comfortable staying exactly where you are. You may try to argue that your case is special, that your sacrifices have already been enough? Perhaps they have. But if your results remain far below your potential, it is likely that there are still things you cling to which you pretend are harmless, but which quietly are more valuable to you than the success you say you want. The path before you is simple, though not easy. Identify what you must give up. Accept that the loss is real. Do not soften it with lies. Feel the sting of it and choose it anyway. In doing so, you prove to yourself, more than to anyone else, that your desire to rise is deeper than your attachment to the habits, excuses, and comforts that have kept you low. From that proof, inner respect grows. And where inner respect grows, outer opportunities begin to recognize a man who has finally answered success' only serious question with his actions. This is what I am willing to give up, and this is why I can be trusted with more. You have seen that success is not won by charm or chance. It is purchased with things you once believed you could not live without. Now you must learn how to make that price intelligent, deliberate, and even dignified. Sacrifice, when it is unconscious, feels like robbery. Sacrifice, when it is chosen, becomes an exchange. The man who sacrifices blindly feels always poorer. The man who sacrifices with understanding feels himself growing richer on the inside even before his outer life changes. Begin by understanding this. You are already sacrificing. Every day you trade something for something else. When you choose idle comfort, you sacrifice strength. When you choose to delay, you sacrifice momentum. When you choose to avoid a difficult conversation, you sacrifice clarity and respect. You have been giving things up all your life. You have simply not been conscious of what you were trading away. Success simply asks you to become conscious and deliberate about these trades. To do this, you must sit down with yourself as a businessman sits with his accounts. Take a plain sheet of paper and draw 2 columns. At the top of one, write, "What I say I want." At the top of the other, write, "What I continue to choose." Under what I say I want, write your ambitions without softness. The level of income you seek, the character you wish to possess, the strength you want in your body, the influence you wish to wield, the peace you desire in your mind and home. Under what I continue to choose, write the habits, attitudes, and indulgences you still cling to. The late nights that steal your mornings, the aimless hours that steal your focus, the complaining that steals your courage, the company that steals your standards. Now, line by line, ask a hard question. Can these two live together? Can the man who rises late and dull truly become the man who leads with vigor? Can the man who feeds on gossip build a reputation for wisdom? Can the man who avoids every discomfort grow into someone who carries heavy responsibility? If the honest answer is no, then you have before you a clear sacrifice. You cannot keep both the desire and the contradictory habit. One must go. To cling to both is to live in a quiet torment of divided loyalties. Do not rush this examination. You are not merely making a list. You are exposing the real terms on which you have been dealing with life. Up to now, you have perhaps spoken as though success had unfairly ignored you. When you see these 2 columns side by side, you will understand that it has not ignored you at all. It has simply noted that you have been more loyal to certain pleasures and protections than to your stated ambitions. Once this is clear, you must choose one sacrifice to begin with. Do not try to burn down your entire old life in a day. That is drama, not discipline. Drama exhausts a man. Discipline strengthens him. Select one specific thing that stands obviously between you and your next level. It may be a habit of laziness at a particular hour, a pattern of wasteful spending, a circle of companions who keep you anchored, or a repeated excuse that shuts down your will? Whatever it is, name it. Vague sacrifice produces vague results. Now, before you attempt to give it up, you must understand what it has been doing for you. Weak habits survive because they serve some hidden purpose. Perhaps that nightly indulgence has been your way of avoiding thinking about your future. Perhaps that circle of aimless talkers has allowed you to feel superior while remaining small. Perhaps that excuse, "I am just tired," has been your shield against the fear of discovering what you are truly capable of. If you try to cast away these things without recognizing the comfort they gave you, you will feel only loss and emptiness. In that emptiness, you will rush back to them. So ask, what does this habit protect me from? What pain does it help me escape? When you discover the answer, do not despise yourself. See it with clear eyes. Then ask a second question. Is this protection worth the price of my potential? That is the true bargain you have been making. When you feel that question deep in your bones, you are ready to lay the habit on the altar not as a victim of some harsh discipline, but as a man who refuses to sell his future cheaply. When you decide to give it up, mark the decision in a visible way. Write it out. From this day, I relinquish this habit, this excuse, this company, for the sake of the man I am becoming. Put the date. Sign your name. You are not playing at improvement. You are making a contract with yourself. When the temptation to return to the old pattern arises, and it will, you can look at that contract and remember that you chose this sacrifice in cold blood, not in a passing mood. Next, you must apply the law of substitution. The mind does not tolerate a vacuum. If you merely remove a habit, you leave a gap that will be quickly filled by something of similar nature. That is why a man who gives up one vice without replacing it with a virtue soon finds another vice taking its place. Success is not asking you to throw away without also asking you to take up. If you give up late hours of indulgence, you may take up early hours of study or exercise. If you give up wasteful talk, you may take up reading, planning, or writing. If you give up a circle that drags you down, you may seek out men and women whose presence lifts you. In this way, sacrifice becomes substitution, substitution becomes transformation. You are exchanging the same hours, the same days, the same life, but using them for different ends. The man who once spent his evenings numbing himself to avoid pain now spends his evenings sharpening himself for tomorrow's challenges. From the outside, nothing mystical has happened. He still sits in the same chair, under the same roof, but the inner use of that time has changed. That change, repeated 100 times, writes a different destiny. Understand that the first stage of sacrifice is pain. Your mind and body will complain. They will say, "We miss the old comfort. We miss the old release." This is natural. Do not mistake it for a sign that you have erred. It is merely evidence that you are cutting into living flesh, not trimming dead branches. If there were no pain, it would mean that what you gave up was not really holding you. The second stage is neutrality. Over time, the sharpness of the loss fades. The old habit no longer calls as loudly. You still remember it, but its grip is weaker. At this point, many men grow careless. They say, "I am cured," and wander back toward the old pattern, believing they can now handle it in moderation. This is how they lose months and years in repeated cycles of relapse. When you reach neutrality, you must remember why you gave the thing up. Reread your contract. Recall the price you were paying. Neutrality is not the time to experiment. It is the time to deepen your new pattern until it becomes natural. The third stage is preference. This is when what once felt like sacrifice begins to feel like deliverance. The early mornings that once seemed cruel now become cherished. You look around at men who still waste their dawns and feel grateful for the peace and power you have found. The discipline of controlling your temper, once a strain, now feels like freedom compared to the slavery of outbursts and regret. The solitude you once feared now feels cleaner than the shallow company you left behind. At this stage, you no longer have to push yourself away from the old life. You are pulled toward the new one. The exchange has been completed in your heart. To reach this third stage, you must stay the course long after the excitement has worn off. Anyone can make a dramatic sacrifice for a few days. It is persistence that turns sacrifice into strength. The soldier who trains only when he feels heroic will never be ready for battle. The student who studies only when the material fascinates him will never master his field. The builder who works only when it is easy will never complete his structure. Sacrifice must become part of your daily rhythm, not an occasional spectacle. Now, let us look at the specific areas where sacrifice yields the highest returns. The first is your body. You may speak of success as a matter of mind and spirit, and you would be right. But your mind and spirit operate through a physical instrument. A weak instrument limits a powerful player. Fatigue, illness, and neglect of the body are silent thieves of opportunity. They rob you of hours of clear thought, of dependable energy, of physical presence that commands respect. To honor your body as a tool of success, you must be willing to give up certain abuses. Excess food, lack of movement, irregular rest, indulgence in substances that cloud your faculties. These are not merely private pleasures. They are direct sabotage of your own capacity. You cannot treat your body as a dumping ground and expect your mind to remain sharp and your will strong. Success takes one look at how you inhabit your own flesh and judges whether you are fit to carry heavier loads. This does not mean you must become obsessed with physical perfection. It means you must give up the lie that how you treat your body has no bearing on your destiny. A clear eye, a steady hand, a rested brain, these are advantages. To gain them, you will sacrifice sloth. You may go to bed when others stay up. You may choose plain food when others indulge. You may strengthen your muscles while others sit. In return, you receive a reliability of energy that supports your ambitions instead of undermining them. The second area is your mind. A man's mind is like his dwelling. Some keep it crowded with junk, trifling worries, petty grievances, endless fragments of unimportant talk. Others keep it clean, ordered, furnished with ideas, principles, and visions that give direction. You cannot achieve a rich outer life with a starving inner one. Success demands that you feed your mind on material that stretches and instructs it. That means you must give up the habit of mental idleness. You must abandon the endless chewing of trivial matters and make room for study. This may require painful exchanges. You may have to put aside those familiar tales and idle entertainments that fill your evenings and replace them with books that challenge you, letters that clarify your thinking, and quiet hours of reflection. At first, your attention will rebel. It has grown used to being amused, not engaged. Persist. The mind, like the body, grows to love what strengthens it. What begins as sacrifice becomes appetite. The day will come when you hunger more for a page of wisdom than for a night of diversion. The third area is your associations. No man climbs entirely alone, but not every hand is fit to hold while you climb. Some pull you upward, some hold you still, some quietly tug you downward. Success will ask you an uncomfortable question. Who must you give up walking with if you are to walk where you belong? Perhaps there are men you have known for years whose talk is always negative, whose ideas never rise above complaint, whose habits contradict everything you are trying to build. You may care for them, but you cannot deny the effect they have on you. You must be willing, if necessary, to see them less. You need not insult them. You need not declare yourself superior. You must simply choose to spend more time with those whose presence strengthens you, even if, at first, those people are not friends but authors on a page. As your character grows, you will draw living associates who share your seriousness, but you will not meet them while you spend every free hour in circles that ridicule the very virtues you are trying to practice. The fourth area is your inner conversation. This may be the most decisive of all. Each day, from waking until sleep, you speak to yourself. You interpret events, judge yourself, judge others, predict the future, excuse or condemn your actions. That river of words shapes your courage, your hope, your willingness to act. To become the man success seeks, you must be willing to give up certain familiar phrases you have spoken inside for years. You must abandon, "That is just my luck, I always fail," "Men like me never get far, I cannot bear this," "If I try, I will only be disappointed." These sentences may feel honest because they have described your past experience, but they are not law, they are chains. Each time you repeat them, you sacrifice a little more of your future. You must lay them down and replace them with statements that, while perhaps unfamiliar at first, align with the man you are choosing to be. I will find a way to use this. I learn quickly. My past does not limit my future. I can endure more than I once believed. If I persist, something will yield. You may object, but I do not feel this yet. You are not describing your feelings. You are issuing orders. You are appointing your inner conversation to serve your advancement instead of your despair. The sacrifice here is the habit of indulging in dramatic self-pity. The gain is a mind that supports your efforts instead of undermining them. Finally, success will ask you to give up the notion that you can ever stop paying. It will not allow you to think, "Once I achieve this level, I can relax and abandon the disciplines that brought me here." That belief has ruined many men. They sacrificed to climb and then tried to live at the summit on the diet of the valley. Success is not a possession you can lock in a chest and forget. It is a condition that must be maintained. What changes is not that sacrifice ends, but that it becomes more intelligent and more joyful. In the beginning, you give things up reluctantly, as a sick man surrenders his poison. Later, you give them up gratefully, as a man in training sets aside weights he no longer needs for the next race. The sacrifices change form. You may no longer have to deny yourself the cheap indulgences of youth, but you will have to guard your time from new distractions, your character from new flattery, your purpose from new temptations to drift. If this sounds heavy, consider the alternative. The man who refuses to pay these prices pays others. The dull ache of wasted potential, the bitterness of watching lesser men pass him, the quiet shame of explaining to himself year after year why nothing truly changes. He sacrifices his pride at the altar of his laziness. He gives up his dreams to keep his habits. He exchanges the pain of discipline for the pain of regret and calls that choosing an easier life. The law does not vanish because you ignore it. Success will always ask, what are you willing to give up? If you pretend not to hear, your life answers for you. It shows exactly what you were willing to surrender and what you refused to release. You are not powerless in this. You can decide now that your future is worth more than your oldest comforts. You can decide that the man you are called to be is worth more than the boy you have been protecting. You can decide that the price of growth though it stings, is cheaper than the price of staying the same. And when you decide, not with a burst of emotion, but with a steady will, you will find that success begins to turn its head toward you, recognizing at last a man who understands its language, the language of deliberate, purposeful sacrifice. There is a point at which sacrifice stops, feeling like punishment, and begins to feel like clarity. You are not giving things up at random. You are putting your life in order around a central purpose. The clutter falls away. The excuses fall silent. The question, what am I willing to give up, becomes less of a threat and more of a measuring stick. You hold it up to every invitation, every habit, every thought, and you see at once whether it belongs in the life you are building or in the life you are leaving. From this point, your relationship with success changes. You stop begging for it as if it were a fickle stranger. You start treating it as a stern but fair partner. You understand that it will not cheat you. It will simply match you. It will give you in proportion to what you are willing to release and to what you are willing to endure. This understanding frees you from jealousy. When you see another man prosper, you no longer mutter about his luck. You ask, what did he give up that I still cling to? That question turns envy into instruction. To live this way, you must establish a daily covenant with yourself. In the morning, you ask, what will I lay down today in order to move forward? It may be an hour of idleness, a bitterness you have been nursing, a grudge that drains your strength, a fear that has dictated your choices. You do not need to overthrow your entire life each day. You need to choose one concrete surrender and honor it. In the evening, you ask, did I pay the price I agreed to pay? If yes, you give yourself quiet respect. If no, you do not hide. You face it, adjust, and renew the covenant for tomorrow. This simple practice eliminates confusion. You will stop saying, I do not know why nothing changes. You will know exactly why. Either you are paying or you are not. If you are paying, you can endure the slow seasons because you trust the law. If you are not, you can stop blaming the world and deal with the truth in your own mirror. There is power in that honesty. It may sting, but it gives you back control. As long as you believe that everything depends on forces beyond your will, you remain a spectator. As soon as you admit, I have not yet paid what this costs, you become an actor. Do not misunderstand. This is not a call to grind yourself into dust. True sacrifice is not frantic activity, it is accurate priority. There are men who exhaust themselves with meaningless busyness and call it paying the price. They are always in motion, always tired, always complaining. Yet they avoid the one sacrifice that would change everything. The sacrifice of disorganization, the sacrifice of doing 10 shallow things instead of one deep thing. Success is not impressed by how worn out you are. It is impressed by how precisely you invest yourself. Therefore, part of what you must give up is confusion. You must give up the habit of living many days without clear intention. Each morning, you decide what matters most. That decision itself is a sacrifice. You are giving up the illusion that everything can be equally important. You choose a few vital tasks and accept that other things will wait. You focus, not because you are narrow-minded, but because you are done sacrificing your power to distractions. You would rather disappoint trivial demands than betray your central purpose. You will notice something else as you live this way. Your respect for yourself will rise. Nothing poisons a man like seeing himself shrink from the very action he knows he must take. Every time you avoid a necessary sacrifice, you teach your own mind that you cannot be trusted. Every time you honor a sacrifice, even a small one, you teach your mind the opposite. When I decide, I follow through. Over months and years, this is how confidence is truly built. Not through affirmations alone, but through observed loyalty to your own word. With rising self-respect comes a calmer attitude toward the future. You no longer sit waiting anxiously for a breakthrough. You know that if you continue to surrender what must be surrendered and to do what must be done, results will come. You may not know the exact form or the exact day, but you know the law cannot be mocked. A farmer who sows diligently, tends his field, and protects it from pests does not lie awake wondering whether harvest time will arrive. He knows it must. In the same way, a man who has aligned his sacrifices with his purpose can rest from panic even while he works hard. There is one more sacrifice to mention, and it may be the hardest. You must give up the fantasy that you will ever be finished with growth. Many want success so they can finally stop sharpening themselves. They imagine a day when they can say, I have arrived. Now I can live carelessly. That day, if it ever comes, is the beginning of their decline. Life does not allow a man to stand still. He is either refining or decaying. Success is not a destination where work ends. It is a level at which higher work begins. When you accept this, you stop resenting the ongoing demands of improvement. You understand that the very process of sacrificing, choosing, refining, and rising is what keeps you alive in spirit. You do not cling to old victories because you are too busy becoming worthy of new ones. You do not mourn the comforts you have left behind because the strength you have gained is worth more than all of them combined. You live not as a man constantly losing, but as a man constantly trading up. In the end, the question, what are you willing to give up, is not a threat from a cruel universe. It is an invitation from a wiser version of yourself. That wiser self sees clearly what you cannot yet see. What you cling to is small compared to what you could hold. What you protect is narrow compared to what you could build. What you fear losing is nothing compared to what you are losing by keeping it. Stand before that question now, without flinching. Name one thing, then another, that must be laid aside so that your hands, your mind, and your heart are free to grasp the life that matches your true capacity. Lay them down not with self-hatred, but with sober gratitude for what they have taught you and firm resolve that they will not rule you any longer. When you do, you will feel a strange lightness, not because the road is easy, but because you are finally traveling it without dragging chains. Success has never been closed to you. It has merely been waiting for you to answer in action what you have long answered only in words. When you show, through intelligent, consistent sacrifice, that you are done selling your future for trinkets of comfort, success will recognize you as one of its own. And then, almost quietly, you will find that the very things you once chased now begin to move toward you, not as accidents, not as charity, but as the rightful return on the price you were at last willing to pay.